All right, now that you are all familiar with geometric series, just like we did with arithmetic for the last part, we learned how to find the sum of um, a number of terms in a series. So we're also going to do that here with a geometric series. Remember, we're using the summation notation here to give us our lower limit and our upper limit, and we're going to try to find the sum of those terms in that series of our geometric series. So first thing, we look at our summation formation. We've got a lower limit of k equals 1 and an upper limit of 10. So we want to find the sum of the first 10 terms of this sequence that we have the rule for right here. Before we do that, let me show you the core concept here, the actual formula that we use to sum the first nth terms of a geometric series. Now, this is based on the assumption that r does not equal 1. Okay, if we just had r equal 1, this wouldn't be a series. It would just be a steady ratio of numbers. So this is our formula right here. Our sum is equal to our first term times 1 minus r to the nth power over 1 minus r. So this is 1 minus our common ratio to the nth power, so whatever term we're taking the formation up to, minus or over 1 minus our common ratio. So let's go look at our example right here. So we want to find the sum of the first 10 numbers in the series that is 4 times 3 to the k minus 1. So let's look at our steps. So we first need to find the first term and the common ratio. So in here, our first term is just whatever we get when we plug 1 in here. So we take 1, plug that in for k. So we get 1 minus 1, that's 0. So we get 4 times 3 to the 0 power. Remember, anything to the 0 power is just 1. So we get 4 times 1. That equals 4. So our first term is equal to 1. That's helpful because, again, look, we need a sub 1 in our formula. So we've got a1. Now let's go back. Our next step is identify the common ratio. That's easy because, look, in our rule, this is our common ratio. The base of our exponent is our common ratio. So we've identified that. So now if we look back, we've got our common ratio, we've got our first term. The only other thing we need to know is n, but we already know n because that's our upper limit. So now we just take all of these values and plug them in. So remember, the sum of the first 10 is going to be just our first term times 1 to the ratio to the 10th power over 1 minus the ratio. Let's just plug all these values in that we know. So the sum of our first 10 terms is going to be our first term, which is 4, times 1 minus our ratio to the 10th over 1 minus our ratio. So we just substituted 4 for a1 and 3 for r, and also 10 where n was at because it's our first 10 terms. Let's go ahead and work this out. We get 118,096. So good problem right there. Again, it's just substituting values. So don't overcomplicate these things. Just remember what your steps are. You should all have written down or be writing down this summation formula right now. This is the sum of a finite geometric series. We know it's finite because we have to have an upper limit to take the sum. If we were trying to take the sum of an infinite series, we wouldn't have an n value. So there's a separate equation. Don't worry about that right now. But right now we're just working with a finite series. Now, let's go back. Now that you have that, what I want you to do is I want you to solve these 3 problems right now. So you've got the sum of 3 different problems here. Now, this is just simple. Just follow my steps. Use this formula here. If you haven't written down this formula, write it down one more time. And just make sure you're plugging in the proper values for each variable here. It really is that simple. You'll notice that when you look at these problems right here, you've got a lot of information that you need for this. Okay, you know your n values, right? 8, 12, and 7. You know your common ratios, and you just need to solve for the first term. All right, good luck on that one. And these are the last 3 problems. Go ahead and write them all in the same text box, but label them 7, 8, and 9. So you're just finding the sum. So in the text box, just do 7 and your answer, 8 and your answer, and then 9 and your answer.